Disclaimer: the following audio is recorded from the legacy version of the Second Lirzog War Museum by Phil Smell, aka Sofa, the creator of Project Altiris. Please note that all content within may be subject to change in the future. Thank you.
Welcome to the Second Lirzog War First Anniversary Commemorative Museum. I'm Sofa, also known as Phil Smell. That's filth smell. No, there were not 4 smells preceding me. In any case, these audio guides will provide narration for tidbits of Altiris lore pertaining to some of the exhibits you may see here. To cue narration, just shoot these signs displaying a speaker icon. Thanks everyone for humoring me after all this time, and sorry about the performance. Optimization really isn't my strong suit. General Endri Larmos remains a celebrated figure in Servanian military history to this day. As acting field marshal of Servanian army operations from the latter half of the war with Chagaria up until the collapse of the Kruvik regime, he is often remembered for his strategic expertise and unique approach to maneuver warfare. Popular history often glosses over many aspects of his career and personality. Up until his appointment to field marshal, his strategies relied on gambling with the lives of his men, violating his orders, and often intentionally severing contact from higher command echelons. His success could arguably have been thanks to luck and general mismanagement of the Chagarian invasion forces, until recognition by the Ministry of Defense allowed his approach to be integrated into doctrine, a doctrine which would define Servania's expansionist efforts throughout the Westernlands Wars. Even more notable, and equally overlooked, was his complete social ineptitude, obsessive and unhealthy work ethic, and veritable laundry list of mental illnesses, which had gone undiagnosed until decades after his death, including anxiety, depression, and a variation of obsessive-compulsive disorder. While other leadership elements of the Kruvik regime were accounted for during its collapse, his sudden disappearance gave rise to a number of conspiracy theories, ranging from him assuming a position of leadership among later nationalist guerrilla movements, to escaping with one of many supposed lovers. The truth would be found much later, after his remains were found in the root cellar of what was once his family's home, having relapsed and spent his last days in isolation, where he died of starvation. Like many of his colleagues, General Ifan Litcwerman was born and bred into his position. However, unlike said colleagues of a similar background, he was among the most vocal members of Hetland's modernist circle. Although it was thanks to his efforts that the Home Army had begun preparing itself for a war with Servania, and without the aid from their League allies, he was often forced to make dangerous compromises, owing to a general dissonance between the military and the aristocracy. During the Second Lirzog War, his limitations came in the form of meddling from above and a general lack of competence below. When a series of well-executed maneuvers could have allowed him to sever the Servanian spearhead and shift the tide of the war, he was consistently hampered by miscommunication, insistence of the central staff to remain static, and the inability of his subordinates to properly execute their responsibilities. By the time cracks had formed in the Home Army, and various factions had begun conducting operations in their own way, he could not rely on any form of support from upper echelons. Following the end of the war, he would be appointed to the position of Prime Minister of the Servanian puppet state, the Republic of Hetland. In a notably vitriolic move, he had many surviving members of the central staff, his former superiors, tried for incompetence or outright treason, resulting mainly in exile. With their consistent campaigning throughout the Westernlands Wars, he was able to leverage Servania's economic position to Hetland's advantage, sparing Hetland from reparations, full-scale Servanian occupation, and ultimately undoing the Republic's status as a puppet state. King Zrykosi III, born Zrykosi Peter Sadsman Lethwick, son of Zrykosi II and Queen Estelle Lethwick of Norhold, ascended to the throne in 509 as the last king of Hetland. As the sole heir to the Hetic throne, his ambitions of a military career in his early life were curtailed. Nevertheless, he went on to attend the Brescian Imperial War College at a young age, where he earned the title of honorary lieutenant and gained a keen interest in maritime studies. This was believed to have influenced his later attempts to establish Hetland's own ocean-going navy, and while that may be debatable, his interest in sailing and naval history was apparent in his personal life. He would marry Duchess of Krast Anna Rothkin in 498, making him the first of his line to marry within Hetland itself, ingratiating himself with a number of other prominent Hetic noble houses. The early years of his reign coincided with the foundation of the Servanian Republic to the west, and the aftermath of the Lavinian Revolution in the east, and the tensions that flared across Altiris as a result. Moreover, the popularity and stability of his immediate predecessors placed a great deal of pressure upon him, putting him under especially heavy scrutiny. Just as Hetland found itself wedged between the Commonwealth and the League, forced to abandon its policy of neutrality, Zrykosi himself often found himself at the mercy of a divided kingdom. With his predecessor's emphasis on bolstering the nation's economic prosperity, the influence of the aristocracy could not be ignored, and their fears of a military coup meant some risky compromises would need to be made. Moreover, the Urchek correspondence, conducted during the Lord's uprising in Servania, cemented Hetland's alliance with Chagaria and the Sovereigns' League. Although this would be met with general public approval, it was seen by many in the capital as a violation of principle, and potentially the undoing of House Sadsman's work. When Chagaria launched its invasion of Servania in 524, the rifts within the kingdom would be further widened by his agreement to lend troops from the home army, and his agreement with General Ifan Litcwerman to bolster the nation's defense, the latter interpreted as a sign of mistrust of their Chagarian allies. Zrykosi remained in Lingane during the early months of the Second Lirzag War, despite making several plans to visit troops, which were often thwarted by Servania's unexpectedly rapid advances. Finding himself powerless amidst the bickering of the central staff, the aristocrats, and the home army's field officers, he, his family, and a handful of servants and close friends would be moved to a secret underground bunker where they intended to spend the duration of the war. While Servanian propaganda depicted it as an extravagant underground palace, conditions were in fact very Spartan. Meals were often limited to the same emergency rations distributed to home army personnel, and when Zrykosi's son Ilan became ill, the royal family had to flee the country by ship, as the proper medicine and doctors were not available. The secrecy of the royal family's evacuation resulted in very few details becoming available. During what was most likely the last leg of the trip, aboard the Brescian destroyer HIMS Ildridge, Zrykosi would suffer a fatal stroke. Upon arrival in Falazdan, he would be declared deceased. With the death of his son 2 years later, after being thrown from a balcony, and Queen Anna's death by suicide shortly thereafter, House Sadsman and the Kingdom of Hetland would ultimately end there in the Brescian capital. Though the intentionally misleading Light Patrol Group moniker would be dropped in the early 530s, the first Special Insertion Group, as it would come to be known, would conduct operations throughout and beyond the Westernlands Wars. As Servania's first operational airborne infantry unit, it was originally devised during the war with Chagaria as a means of conducting raids, sabotaging equipment, and eliminating key personnel behind enemy lines in order to stem the invasion, and was given the Light Patrol Group title to mislead enemy intelligence. However, shortages of aviation fuel, available aircraft, personnel, and secure airspace kept it from seeing action. During the Second Lirzag War, the Special Insertion Group would play an instrumental, yet largely unknown, role in maintaining Servanian initiative, destroying road and rail bridges to starve the defenders of supplies, staging fake offensives to redirect resources and attention, and causing general havoc in the kingdom's interior. The most famous, or perhaps infamous, chapter in this Special Insertion Group's history was at Castle Dajik in the early autumn of 526. In a bold raid, a force of paratroopers dropped nearby the castle, which served as the headquarters of the Hetic Royal Flying Service. and swiftly stormed the keep. The ensuing firefight saw the deaths of the Royal Flying Service's most important personnel, including Chief of Staff Archek Marhol, Flying Ace Dastan Simovan, and Air Service Information Director Tomasz Rosa. Moreover, the seizure of vital codebooks rendered Hetic cryptography virtually impotent for the remainder of the war. Entering service in the Akrovian army in 519, the Stanlo universal machine gun quickly became one of the most ubiquitous firearms of the modern age. By 528, it had been adopted by every nation in the Lusovakian Commonwealth and all their minor allies and annexed nations. Up until the advent of the assault rifle, it was second only to the Brandt in sheer numbers distributed across Eltiris and the world, with innumerable variants, copies, and derivatives throughout the years. Its flexibility, simple construction, high rate of fire, and ease of manufacture and operation made it ideal for nations such as Cervania. With their emphasis on mobility and a streamlined supply system, it served in almost every role a machine gun could fill. Carried by infantry, mounted onto vehicles and tanks, and carried aboard aircraft. The main disadvantage came in the form of ammunition. The Stanlo was chambered in 7.8mm, while as of the Second Lirzog War, the Cervanian army had not yet adopted 7.8 as standard, instead using the underpowered 6.7mm Ministry cartridge. Because of this, and the Stanlov's high rate of fire, machine gunners would frequently run out of ammunition very quickly. This problem prompted the development of a Cervanian Stanlo variant, chambered in 6.7mm. However, this was scrapped in favor of upgrading to common 7.8mm across the spectrum. This effort began shortly after the end of the Second Lirzog War, and included the introduction of the KB-7828, replacing the KB-509 service rifle, as well as the KBA-78, the original version of the KBA-67 self-loading rifle, before it was downgraded due to production limitations. The advantages offered by self-loading semi-automatic service rifles were apparent ever since the Third Spat, and militaries across Eltiris sought to develop one for their own arsenal. However, no reliable designs would become available until the early 520s. One of the earlier solutions was devised by inventor Brandt-Elwick in the form of a toggle-lock loading system, which he shared with prolific Brescian arms designer Hauer Elson Brandt. The result of their collaboration was the Brandt-Elwick autoloader, in which Elwick's toggle-lock system was fitted onto surplus Brandt rifles, replacing the original bolt-action system. Despite their enthusiasm for such a weapon, Brescia and other Eastern empires rejected the Brandt-Elwick, owing to the complexity of the toggle-lock mechanism. It was deemed that it might be unreliable in action, and difficult and expensive to manufacture in any significant number. Many Westlands nations, however, leapt at the opportunity to arm themselves with such an advanced piece of hardware, and the first production block was sold to the Kingdom of Hetland. As expected, during the Second Lirzog War, the rifles proved to be notoriously unreliable in combat, required special lubricated cartridges, and were only made available in limited numbers. Though less of a major issue, many of its end users in Hetland found the loading mechanism to be startling or annoying, as the action would jump up out of the receiver after every shot, threatening to strike the user in the face. Okay, look, I know what you're thinking. What is this thing? I ain't seen it in the weapon pack. I ain't seen it on any maps. I ain't seen it on the workshop. What the heck is this thing? It's a Spigot mortar, is what it is. A petard discharger. And yeah, I know how petard sounds, but it's like a bomb. It's like a bomb for blowing up fortifications. So think of it a bit like a man-portable version of that Avery Churchill mortar. Developed for, I want to say, Chagarian army engineers, for blowing up fortifications and obstacles and machine gun nests from far away without help from mortars or artillery, and then figuring, this thing would be very handy against tanks. Maybe not from a penetration standpoint, but, for blowing off tracks or taking out lighter vehicles, or, maybe we could fit a shape charge on it. So this would be something that maybe isn't as good at taking out tanks as the anti-tank rifle, but can also blow stuff up. Or maybe there's different types of ammo. Like high explosive for general purpose blowing things up, and then a shape charge for anti-armor. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Or I won't. Discussion of the Cervanian Chell 1 light tank today will invariably feature prominent mention of its shortcomings. Many of them seem to be very obvious oversights, and even, in the opinion of some, intentional errors. The vehicle's design was rooted more in economics than doctrine. The two-man crew was inefficient and easily overwhelmed. The 27mm gun was known to be of limited use against armored and soft targets, without even having the advantage of fully automatic fire. Despite being proportionally well armored, its protection was nevertheless insufficient to stand up to modern anti-tank weaponry. And while it was small and light, it lacked the kind of cross-country speed one might expect. The common consensus is that the Chell 1 was a tank built for a war of attrition, the kind of war that Cervania could not fight. However, many of these criticisms are rooted in hindsight. The most frequent critique of Cervanian armor development was that motor arms should have focused on smaller numbers of higher quality tanks. The fact that Cervania was in no position to produce such vehicles is often overlooked. But so too is the fact that tank design and doctrine had not fully matured at the time of the Chell 1's development. The traits that would have made for an effective tank simply were not known. The Chell 1's shortcomings were acknowledged as such by its designers. The 27mm gun was intended to be placeholder and would be replaced by the 34mm CK-3422 gun when it became more widely available. However, the invasion by Chirgaria precluded these plans, as Cervania needed to make immediate use of what it had on hand. Similarly, the Chell 2 was not a so-called panic project, as is often said by critics. For it to have been made in response to the Chell 1's failures in the war with Chirgaria, it would have needed to go through design, testing, factory conversion, and production phases over the course of less than a year. A time frame unheard of even among the continental powers, let alone Cervania in the midst of an invasion. In fact, plans for a successor were drawn while the Chell 1 was still in early production. However, the original plan was to iterate on the new design over a longer period of time, taking lessons learned from the Chell 1 in regards to both production and doctrine, before Cervania was ready to mass produce it. The panic of the Chell 1's ineffectiveness didn't create the Chell 2, but it did cancel long-term plans in order to begin immediate production, resulting in a troubled implementation, made possible only through assistance by Cervania's Commonwealth allies. After the introduction of combat aircraft during the Third Spat, the importance of an air service was not lost on the Hetic military, but the question remained of how it was to be implemented and organized. Most favored the idea of integrating it into the Army, attaching fighter and bomber groups to divisions on land, and putting them under a unified command structure. More forward-thinking officers, including General Ifan Litcwerman, argued for a separate branch to be created for aircraft, which could take advantage of advancements in communication technology to liaison with Army commanders. This argument won out in the end, and the Hetic Royal Flying Service was born. General Arsek Marhol, one of the most vocal advocates of its creation, was appointed as its chief of staff. Joint exercises quickly proved that coordination between land and air forces depended not only on communication, but on information as well. The Air Service Information Bureau was therefore established in short order as a means of organizing aerial reconnaissance missions, as well as intelligence-gathering operations involving air assets and signals intelligence. With Cervenia's breakthrough of the Perlechkin Line in the summer of 526, the Royal Flying Service stepped up its efforts and changed its approach. The Cervenian Army Air Corps was found to be working very closely with frontline troops. As a result, their fighter defenses had exploitable gaps. This allowed the Hets to gain a unique advantage over their counterparts, launching air raids deep behind enemy lines and at weak points along the front identified by the Air Service Information Bureau. Meanwhile, the highly capable Adler AF-3 fighter frustrated Cervenian efforts to bomb targets too far east of the front lines. Thanks to the efforts of Hetic pilots and their volunteer wingmen from Chigaria and Brescia, the seemingly unbreakable Cervenian advance was starting to show signs of slowing. With such a rapidly thrusting front, a loss of momentum could allow pockets to form, meaning significant portions of Cervenian forces could be encircled and destroyed. At the very least, a battle of attrition would deplete Cervenia's already strained resources, allowing for a strategic reversal. The Royal Flying Service could have achieved this, were it not for a raid conducted by Cervenian paratroopers on their headquarters at Castle Dasik. There, many key personnel of the Flying Service, the Air Service Information Bureau, and a number of elite pilots were killed by the raiders, who also secured vital intelligence and codebooks. Command of Hetland's air assets would be handed over to the Home Army, using a structure originally proposed by the Central Staff. Their pilots and planes would remain an essential element to Hetland's defense, but not nearly in the same capacity as before. By the war's end, some pilots had fled the country to form the Free Hetic Flying Service. Those who remained would join the Air Force of the Cervenian puppet state, the Republic of Hetland. In time, as the Westenland's wars drew on, these former comrades would come to blows. What? Man, this is my office. This is my office. What are you doing in here? Go on, get out. Didn't you see the door? It said, "Do not blow up this door." There's a reason I put those signs there, mister. Oh, what? You think this is a joke? You think this is a funny joke? You think we're having japes and laughs and goofs, huh? You just gonna stand around there like an idiot? I told you to get out. Get out of my office. I'm busy in here. You can clearly see that I'm busy. You can see that I'm a... No, never mind. I guess you can't, because I'm not technically here. This is a disembodied voice. But you get the idea. Just take my word for it. I'm busy. Get out. What in the Sam hell are you still doing in here, man? Didn't you hear what I just said? I said this isn't a joke. I said, this is my office, I am working, get out. I'm freaking serious, man. You're starting to get on my nerves. You guys are clamoring for me to make all this content and make all this stuff. I'm trying. What do you think I'm doing in here, dude? I am trying to make stuff for you and for me. Because I still am surprised I'm not the only one playing this. But you guys want me to make stuff. I am trying to make stuff. Okay? That's what I'm doing in here. Now, if you would just get out and let me finish it, that would be outstanding. Please leave. Goodbye. What in the... Oh, really? Really? You're still here? Still? Oh. Oh, I know what this is. Okay. You think this is a funny thing. You think I'm doing a bit. You think I'm just recording all these lines, and if you stick around long enough, you'll get to hear all of them, huh? That's it, huh? Fun Easter egg? You think I got time for that, Skippy? Huh? You think I just spend a whole evening drinking and recording lines while working on some little side project to distract myself from the fact that I can't do anything right? Is that what you think I'm doing? Well, you're wrong. I can tell you this. That is not what I am doing. I am very busy right now. And what you are doing is distracting from my work because you think I'm doing a goof. You think I'm doing a bit. You think I'm doing some funny stuff. You think I'm wasting my time up at the evening just drinking and recording nonsense, huh? Well, I'm saying this now. Get your keister out of my office. I don't want to see you again. Go look at the museum. Go look at the cutaways I made. Go listen to some audio logs. Go play another map. I don't care. Just get out of my face right now. Still sticking around, huh? Alright, fine. I'll just try and keep you entertained. You see those paintings on the wall? Just across from the windows? Yeah, that's some really old art I did. Really old art of Proto-Altiris. I didn't have all this stuff figured out then that I know now. Like, you see that one closest to the bookshelf? That was the Chell Ford. Yeah, that's right. By the time the Chagarians were invading Servania, well, it was called Robania at the time, but it's Servania, same country. Yeah, they were up to their 4th light tank by that time. That one in the middle, that was my original idea for their attack plane. I made that one in Gary's mod. I was really pleased with how it turned out. Of course, now, after some revision, there's no way Servania would have a plane like that at that time. And there's another painting from the Chagarian invasion. Yeah, I had all the media was on the Chagarian invasion. Hetland was just a footnote at that point. Just a glimmer in my eye. Just one little detail about what the Servanians did after getting invaded. Probably wasn't very well thought out, and, well, now that I think about it, it might not have been the best for Ravenfield. I think Ravenfield would have worked better with a proper conflict between real countries. You see those things behind me? Yeah, on the filing cabinets. World War II stuff. Yeah, once amphibious vehicles came out, I'm like, I gotta make me an LVT. Gotta make me an LVT. And then I figured, you know what? Now that I've made an LVT and an LVTA, let's make a Ka-Me. That thing is silly looking. I love it. I probably wouldn't love it if I was fighting in World War II. Well, I don't know. Oh, and on the bookshelf. Yeah, those are all the character models I done. Like, when I was taking commissions, people thought that I was good to do, like, character models and stuff. That's not really what I was hoping to do, because those are my least favorite things. That and bot wrangling on maps. That little guy on the left, the sci-fi looking dude. No, that wasn't commissioned. That was just my own work. That was for a cyberpunk project I wanted to do. Haven't gotten around to it, probably won't be able to. It would have been cool, though, like 80s cyberpunk in Ravenfield. And the guy just to his left. That's something I made for Vel's project. Well, it's not Vel's. Vel is on it. It's Forgotten Theaters. Yeah, they needed some Polish guys, so I made them some Polish guys. Well, that stuff below him. Space stuff I made for Lord Aloa? Yeah, his space map. His space battle map. I made some ships for him. Now that one on the far right, in the corner, that one never got used. I thought it would be cool to have like a Corvette, like a little, almost a capital ship you could fly around. But yeah, he didn't want to do that. He wanted to do fighters, which is like, alright, that's cool. He wanted to sort of, keep it contained. Is there anything else around here? No, not really. I'm glad we had this talk, you and I. You're not so bad. Like when you barged in here, blowing up the door, even though I told you not to blow up the door, I thought you might be some kind of hoodlum. I guess I was wrong about you. Yeah, I was wrong. You're an okay guy. I think I'm gonna head out. Feel free to stick around. Oh, and whatever you do not shoot that bookshelf. I'm not joking. Don't shoot the bookshelf. I think he's still in there. All right. Peace. Are you still there? Hey, you didn't shoot the bookshelf in there, did you? Okay, because if you did, by accident, don't go into the crawl space. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already, if you go into the back room, you'll find that little hatch sort of nestled in the corner with all those crates. Yeah, don't shoot that either. Don't shoot that with an anti-tank gun either. There's stuff down in there. Hello? Hey, buddy, you're not still in there, are you? What are you still doing in my office? There's nothing more to see in there. Go check out the rest of the map, man. I told you all the secrets. The Office of Civil Interest was an organization under the Cervanian Striona and Kruvik regimes, which functioned as secret police, military police, and an intelligence agency, all reporting to the party chairman and, by extension, the Minister of Defense. A notable, although elusive branch of the organization was known as the Investigations Approvals Committee. Its true purpose remained unknown, seeing as investigations conducted by the office required no approval. The only known reference to the committee was in the aftermath of action at the town of Spigot, where exhausted and paranoid Cervanian troops reported what they believed to be a paranormal incident. An inspector from the office linked to the committee was said to have interviewed a number of them,
asking detailed questions relating to the supernatural nature of the event. Messages of the organization has begun to circulate in more recent years, bearing reports of unusual phenomena near the Surveynian town of Andry. Those who have given rise to a number